All right, it's Friday night. It's been a few hours since the injury reports have come out, and now we know more about the fate of this defense heading into Sunday. So I figured let's do a little game preview with the theme being the defense and how it will match up with the Tennessee Titans heading into this Sunday and what we can expect. This has been sort of the running theme for the first 2 weeks of the season, is that this defense is not good. And unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be very not good heading into Sunday, and it's going to be interesting to see how they're able to scheme a Titans offense that isn't doing bad. It's actually pretty balanced right now. So the bad news of the day, sort of what inspired this video, is that Mike Hughes and Cam Dantzler will both be out for Sunday's action against the Titans. This will be the second straight week that Cam Dantzler misses, and the first game that Mike Hughes misses. So this is tough. These are basically our two starting cornerbacks. Cam Dantzler did well enough in camp that he was able to usurp that spot from Jeff Gladney. Well, not really usurp the spot, but I guess he sort of won the training camp battle, if you will. And it's kind of disheartening when your first round pick, I forget what number he was picked overall, but your first round pick essentially can't win the starting job right out of the gate. But Dantzler's a great player, and I'm glad that we have him. So no hard feelings, I guess. So Hughes and Dantzler are both out. Mike Boone, the running back, is listed as questionable. That's not really that significant. We still have Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison, who are more than enough. Chris Boyd is also questionable. I assume he'll probably lace him up and be on the field. If he's out or he is very limited, that hurts the depth in the secondary just that much more. So what we have underneath here at the bottom on the left-hand side is a sort of projected starting defense, if you will. If you remember the setup that I had in the previous videos prior to the season with the team previews and how I laid everything out in terms of a starting depth chart with this format, you're familiar with it. So just taking a look position by position, Anthony Harris, Harrison Smith's safety position is on lock. The corner position is hurting. We're going to have to start Jeff Gladney and Holton Hill. Jeff Gladney hasn't been good in the limited action that he's seen, and that's disheartening because, again, he was our first-round pick, one of our two first-round picks, the other being Justin Jefferson, who hasn't played very, much or very well either. I mean, he caught all three of his targets last week, so that's the silver lining. Linebacker position has taken quite a hit this past week with Anthony Barr going on season-ending injured reserve with a torn pectoral muscle. Troy Dye is now also on IR, but I believe that is one of the shorter stint ones. So he should be back in 3 weeks. We did sign Todd Davis off the street in free agency to sort of help with the linebacker depth, but I don't think that he is going to be able to be in any kind of position to make a start or see significant playing time. So I think that pushes Ryan Connolly into that starting spot, along with Eric Kendricks and Eric Wilson. Defensive line remains largely unchanged. Yannick Ngakoue, Shamar Stephen, Jaleel Johnson, and Odin Igbo. I still have problems pronouncing that, and I'm probably going to have problems pronouncing that until Danielle Hunter comes back, which he will not be returning until next week, not eligible to return until week 4. So this is the projected starters versus the Titans offense that we're looking at. It's miles away from where we were at this point last year. Absolute miles away. And just the loss of Anthony Barr, who was the guy that relayed in all the calls on defense, is just one of the bigger losses that we've suffered. I would argue even bigger than the losses of Trey Waynes and Mackenzie Alexander in free agency last year. So what does all this mean? How do the Titans offense match up against the Vikings defense? What have we seen from them so far? So the bad news is the Vikings defense is pretty bad statistically, 30th overall in the league. They have allowed 876 total yards, 438 yards per game. There's only been 2 games. 283 passing yards per game, that is a lot. 155 rushing yards per game, 36 points per game. And some of these numbers I've rounded up to the nearest one because I didn't want to write out 35.5 points per game. So 36 is the number that you're seeing. Compare that to the Titans offensively. The Titans offensively aren't going to blow the doors off of the game or anything, but they're just sort of good enough where I think they can take advantage of the rotating pieces that we're going to be seeing from the Vikings defense on Sunday, especially in the secondary, because as we've talked about previously, Ryan Tannehill, he looks good. He looks really good this year. Now, there is the asterisk that I have included up on top that reached down here, that A.J. Brown has been ruled out for Sunday's game, but I think that that's rather insignificant because Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith are playing very good football right now. But how do the Titans' offense look so far this year? Well, 18th overall, 731 total yards, 366 yards per game. That's 239 passing yards, 127 rushing yards per game, 25 points per game. So you can sort of see the overlap here: 283 passing yards allowed per game, 239 passing yards achieved per game. So there's going to be significant opportunity for Ryan Tannehill to move the ball down the field and score points. Same with Derrick Henry, who I imagine they're going to utilize a lot, given the fact that this interior defensive line is really shoddy against the run. I don't know what they see in Shamar Stevens and Jaleel Johnson that didn't make them go get somebody in the draft. Yes, I know they did get the kid from Baylor, but he's on the practice squad right now. And yes, they did go get Michael Pierce, but he opted out. So just you got to be prepared for things of this sort, and they just haven't been. They've just been the interior offensive line, other than Garrett Bradbury, has been ignored, and the interior defensive line, other than Michael Pierce, who opted out, has been ignored. So you're just reaping what you sow at this point. Another important measure of the defense is the pass rush efficiency, which we've had none. We currently rank 23rd in defensive pass rush efficiency. I'm having trouble speaking for some reason. So you can absolutely tell that this team really misses Danielle Hunter. We really need to get him back. Is one player going to be significant enough to make any sort of an impact that it trickles down and improves the entire defense? I'm not really willing to bet on that just so far, because I think the secondary is just that bad. And then you also got to take into consideration that we've lost Anthony Barr for the season. That is even more significant. So yes, it will be nice when Danielle Hunter does finally eventually return, but I don't know how much of an impact that's going to make, especially as we go up against some of the better teams in the league. So what is the inverse of all this? We've talked about how the Vikings defense can perform against the Titans offense and where they sit. So what's the inverse? Is the offense going to be able to provide enough points and stay on the field long enough for this to matter? And the answer to that question is probably no. So some offense so far for the Minnesota Vikings, 30th in the league. Defense for the Titans, 26th in the league. They're underachieving. That's the good news, because they have Jadeveon Clowney, Larold Landry, Rashad Evans, a lot of good pieces, a lot of good players. This defense should be better than what it is right now, at least in my opinion. So if there was a weakness that we could exploit, it's going to be the defense. But the question is the offense of the Vikings good enough to be able to exploit that weakness? And I don't know that it is, because if you take a listen to some other stats here, for right now, passing, the Vikings currently rank dead last in the league with 171 yards per game. Time of possession is just as bad, being dead last in the league with 20 minutes and 9 seconds average over the first two games. Pass protecting efficiency, 29th in the league. We always knew that this was going to be a bad team at pass protecting, and that sort of comes into play when you're playing from behind so much, as what they've done in the last two games. You're not good at pass protecting. Teams force you into that scenario, and voila, you're 0-2. It just goes to show you how bad it is. Speaking of, we also have the O-line pressures total surrendered through the first two games. Riley Reif is at a 0. Garrett Bradbury is at a 0. Pressures allowed. Dakota Dozier has allowed 3. Pat Elflein, who is currently on not season ending, but 3-week IR, he allowed 5 in the first game. His replacement Drew Samia allowed 5 in his game, so that's 10 from the right guard position in 2 games. That is horrendous. And then we have Brian O'Neill, the right tackle, who has allowed 3 over 2 games. So the left side's performing better than the right, but the right guard position is just so shot right now that Kirk Cousins is not going to be able to have the time that he needs if we get into obvious passing down situations where he's going to be able to flourish. And the fact that he is being forced to force feed this because he doesn't trust his other receivers yet, to force feed every pass that he can to Adam Thielen, just spells trouble. So they really need to figure out a way to get him out of that mental state in order to spread the ball a little bit more around. So I think they really should work on some halfback screens, wide receiver bubble screens, throws to the flats, what have you, to sort of break it up and spread it around a little bit. Continuing on with some of the Vikings offensive stats, the run block efficiency is really great, 4th in the league. Pat Elflein is one of the better run blockers that we have on this offensive line. He's really good at it. That's the whole reason that this offensive line has been put together, because they wanted to drive the offense through running the ball, and Dalvin Cook is supposed to be that catalyst. But as we've said, once you get behind in these games like they've done for the first 2 weeks by big totals, you have to almost abandon the run. So, the strength of the offense, or the strength of the team, if you will, is not able to be utilized. So that is something to watch out. So that is basically where we stand heading into Sunday. Given the injury news that was today, I felt that this was significant enough to sort of talk about it and see how we were going to match up with the Tennessee Titans. I think the defense is just not going to be good enough. We're not going to be able to overcome the lack of talent that we have right now this early on in the season. It's going to take a while for these younger, inexperienced players to sort of mesh, gel, figure it all out. And then I think by the time we hit the second half, we'll start to see significant improvement. This is probably looking like it's going to be a second half team in terms of regular season. And if they're able to pull off a win this Sunday, I will be surprised and impressed at the same time. So that is sort of our game preview for this weekend for Sunday's game with the Titans and the Vikings. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.